Hi, this is Mika, and welcome to Leap Taken. Here at Leap Taken, I talk about all things witchy, craft-related, law of attraction, manifesting, esoteric, and everything else in between. And I am doing my series. This is part 3 in the series. This is How to Be a Witch. And this particular one is going to be about deities, ancestors, and spirits. And where does that fit in how to be a witch? So we're going to get into it. So disclaimer, I'm a solitary practitioner. I don't know why I can't get the words out. I am a solitary practitioner. I've only practiced that way. I've never been in a coven, even virtually. I've joined groups, but I've never worked on spells with groups of people or anything like that. So I've never done that. I don't have a shared approach or system where I work with other people who practice this path, this witchcraft, eclectic or otherwise. I've never done that. So when I'm talking about this, I'm going to be very individualistic. And that's honestly how I view my path, all of it, everything. You know, it doesn't mean that we can't come to, an agreement and we might all like the same thing, or the same thing may resonate with all of us. But I think our approach is always going to be a bit unique, and I think it's supposed to be that way. So, disclaimer. And also, I don't subscribe to any specific or any religion, honestly, or specific spiritual system. So that would involve ATR's African traditional religions or anything like that. I don't subscribe. I've not been initiated, and I'm not seeking to do so at this stage of my life. I say that because, things change, right? But at this stage of my life, that's not something I'm seeking to do. So also, disclaimer, keep that in mind. So you want to be a witch. And where do these gods and goddesses fit in? Where do the ancestors and the spirit realm or spirit? So, excuse me, being a witch and incorporating all of these things. How do you do it? Excuse me. You can do it with morning meditations, evening, you can call a prayer, blessing of food, that sort of stuff. In the way I guess you would see other people, commune and gratitude and ask for things from their deity. Offerings. You can have a daily practice of making an offering. An offering could be pouring libations, water, that's specifically to the ancestors. Some people have a ritual where they're offering something, whether it's like I said, water, a specific incense, candle, whatever. It's lit for a specific deity every day. There are people who do that every day. Or just an offering of your energy, your time. You sit down, you go to your altar or wherever your sacred space is that you want to commune, and you do some sort of offering there. So that could be a daily thing. Might not be daily, but the point is it's a ritual, right? Petitions. That's another way to incorporate all of this. You can have a petition to a god or goddess, multiple ones, by the way. You don't have to just be working with one. And ancestors as well. Or you could just say to spirit or the universe. Gratitude. So that can be something that's not really a ritual, more of just something that you do. In the same way that people say bless you, or people use I hope the gods are watching. Oh my God, you said something you say out loud. Gods, please watch over me as you go through a dangerous situation, or you win something or you get something, and you give some sort of a gratitude to the gods. And that's just like, it's like like an offhand thing that you just do throughout your day. So there's that. So those are just very simple, very basic. Anybody who you want to be a witch can do. These are the simplest things. Within that, with each of the things I said, obviously could get a lot more complex. or even more simple, it's really up to you and how you want to do your practice, right? And then there is something I do want to talk about. Do you even need to incorporate a deity, ancestor, spirit into your magical practice? Do you need to? The answer is no, you don't. Quick story. I practiced for, I want to say, half of the time that I've practiced, I didn't really invoke or use any deity at all, any god or goddess. I started off as Wiccan, so I would just say God and goddess, but there wasn't anything heartfelt behind those words. I wanted it to be. I wanted those experiences that I've read about in books and I heard other people have. I didn't feel anything. They were empty words. I wanted to evoke an emotion from the experience. I wanted to have dreams where a goddess came to me or something like that. Nope, zilch, nothing. I didn't have any of that. I missed the mark. I was very open to it. So, yeah, it just didn't work for me. I don't know at the time. So, I have a story time that I did some mini videos back where I talked about, basically picking up, getting haunted by an entity. I laughed, but it was actually very horrible. But anyway, that was the experience that sort of is the bridge that I needed to start working with ancestors. So there was that. And along with that, eventually, I gained other knowledge and other resources became available to me to kind of frame the experiences I might have. Now, I'm kind of fudging a little bit. There was one specific experience where I remember reaching out and I was asking for the goddess. I didn't even attempt to put a name to a specific goddess to reach out to at the time, but I remember wanting it, and I was going through something and I wanted to have an experience. I was looking for a specific experience. I wanted to feel protected and cared for and loved by this goddess. So long story short, I remember having the sensation of feeling actual hugged. I was going through something at the time. And I guess, for lack of better words, I was praying, right? And I was wanting to have this experience. And this is after years of practicing. And I felt very vulnerable. And I did feel like there was energy that showed up for me. Now, I'm going to say this. I was still finding my way. I don't, in hindsight, believe it was a specific goddess that came to me at that time. I believe it was the ancestors that reached out to me and understanding my plight. And, they were able to usher me through that experience with comfort and security. And it was okay if I believed it to have been a goddess. I feel that the energy was like, that I got from my ancestors was like, it doesn't matter. Let's just help this girl. So anyway, but authentic and very real and recognizable experiences that I had happened only after I was able to be introduced to ancestor veneration, reverence, and actually act on it and recognize them. And then I was able from there, once I was on that spiritual plane, once I was open and I had that connection, I was then able to have an experience with a deity, with a goddess. And as far as gods are concerned, I believe that that's an experience I'm actively experiencing right now with masculine God energy. I'm having the experience. So it's hard to really talk about it because I'm in it. So what I'll just say is this: I'll eventually share more about that. But right now, this is something that's actively occurring in my life. And it's new to me. It's a new experience to me. So anyway, no, you don't have to incorporate anything if you don't feel it's real. Because at some point I just stopped because it wasn't real to me. It didn't feel real. There was no authentic feelings. There was no organic experience. I didn't get the dreams, the anything, the visions, the nothing. Anyway, so No, and I don't say that like, oh, eventually it'll change for you. It might not. Some people practice witchcraft and don't have any of this stuff included, and that's perfectly acceptable. You don't have to. You don't. And if someone is telling you differently, they're wrong. So I said it. If you needed somebody to tell you that I could be this somebody, they're wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. That's their experience. It's not yours. Point blank, period. Okay. So enough about that. And, that's an individual experience. If you don't want to include ancestor reverence, don't. Don't do it out of obligation because, the people on the internet are doing it. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's perfectly fine. Yeah, so I want to say, just a little over more than half my witchcraft life, I now have that experience. But as far as ancestors, gods, and I guess spirit, and let me get a little bit into that before I go much further. Ancestors are not gods. I don't worship ancestors. I don't worship gods. I don't worship spirits. I don't worship the universe. There you go. So hopefully that explains that. I have been able to completely separate the ideology that is Christianity from all of my spiritual practice. There is no infusion, and if it even remotely is, it's only because I've guessed societal norms that are pervasive, and maybe they've had some influence that is sort of stuck and I can't shake. It's possible. Or just more like recognition. I recognize how society views things. So because I can recognize that there's always a piece there reserved because I can match it. Hopefully that makes sense in my head. But anyway, I don't have to undo anything, and I'm not struggling with trying to get on this path and separate it from Christianity. I'm well past that point, gratefully so. And that took a lot of work, by the way. And that probably had a lot to do with the not feeling connected to any specific god or goddess for so long, because there was so much work that I had to do to divorce myself of the dogma and the brainwashing that is Christianity over my mind and my thinking. You know, if you've pretty much been raised in this country and you know, you've been exposed to that, even parts of your childhood, man, it is hard to undo. It could be, as an adult, it's hard to undo. It is. I think that's why a lot of people get afraid. And I hate that. So I'm going to be doing a separate from this series a video about that. But anyway, I hate that people are afraid of walking this path, because I think we all have a little witch in us. Shout out to Practical Magic. I think we do all have a little witch in us, and there's nothing wrong with reaching into our natural gifts and our natural abilities and communing with gods and communing with those who we share the same bloodline with. That energy never dies, so you know that energy is still there, and communing with them may not be quite the same as, you know, you just talking to another person, but it's a vibration, it's a frequency, and being able to tap into that is beautiful. And I think we all have that ability, even though I clearly was not very successful early in my witchcraft years. But like I said, I believe there was probably a reason for that, and I'm fine. You know, I'm here now, so I'm okay. But if you don't want to tap into that, you probably have valid reasons, and that's okay too. I don't know. I just think that in order to be open to this, you kind of need to be a little bit of a blank slate, and you're using a different logic, a different rationale, different way of thinking than if you are Christian or any of the Judeo-Christian, the big three. Okay, I think you need to kind of take that. You've got to shed that because this is just so different. No one's going to tell you what's right and wrong all the time. No one's going to tell you that. This is your path. You have to set the tone. So you have to have discernment. You've got to have be very well tapped into your intuition and trust it and honor it and let that guide you, because then you know what you can be open to. And like I said, all this is done without fear, because fear is going to be an issue for you, especially those other religions are fear-based. You know, do right or you burn it. Everything's fear-based. So you're going to need to separate that and not be afraid. So anyway, I don't want to go too far down that situation. So which deity do you venerate? Because I don't worship, as I mentioned. Which one do you venerate or worship if you're going to do that, right? Which one? Again, that's a personal choice, because there's going to be, you only know what you know, right? So for most of us, maybe you're going to see symbols, have dreams, and you know, they might not come to you very clear and say, I'm so-and-so, you know, I'm ISIS, or, you know, whatever, you know. They might not come to you that way. So it might be hints and, you know, breadcrumbs for you to follow, which might be a part of an overall plan that they have as far as how they want to engage with you, or there might be their way. You know, a lot of personalities, and I use the term personalities loosely with gods and goddesses, things like that, deities, that is, you know, they're unique to each of them. So how they approach you, or how they open themselves up to you, it's going to be different. And by the way, I know that some people say they feel like they've been approached by several goddesses and gods, so it's not just one, and they have a connection to all of them, so it's not just like this one. A lot of people, if they do have contact with more than one, I find that most people, there's kind of the main one, for lack of better words, that they really work with the most. And it's not that the other ones are less important, but there's the main one, usually the first, you know, or there was an experience in your life where that was the one that stood out more because of what was going on in your life and maybe what they brought you through or you felt like they helped you with. So which one? Again, it's up to you. It's going to be up to you. It's going to be up to your experience and how you're connected. So the other thing, of course, is it possible that certain gods and goddesses fall out of fashion? Maybe they're not as prevalent in your life. Yeah, I think as your witchcraft evolved, it's possible that in the beginning, you know, you really needed, you know, especially if you were calling yourself Wiccan, like myself, you know, maybe one of the other types of gods, it was a Hecate, you know, maybe that was the goddess that carried you through, but as years going on, you know, maybe that others came forward and, you know, we're going to go with Isis. Stay with me. So Isis came through and, you know, you wanted to work with her and you felt called to, and that experience sort of monopolized all the rituals that you do, all the spell work, the petitions. You were constantly calling on her and no longer the first one. And I know some people might feel guilty about that, but I think that you evolve and the experiences that you have with these gods and goddesses evolve as well. And, you know, give yourself grace to let your practice evolve and don't worry so much about the shoulds and shouldn'ts. Now, I'm going to dip into the negative side a little bit. I hadn't even originally planned to talk about this. It's not in my notes that I have here, but I saw something recently because I hadn't been well this last week. So I've watched a lot of YouTube actually and movies and stuff like that. But anyway, there's this idea that once you set up an altar for a goddess, perhaps, that you've now created this portal. And if you stop attending to the altar, the portal is still there, and besides the goddess maybe, you know, not feeling very, you know, loved and wanted because you're ignoring it. So let's say quite a lot of time has gone by and you're no longer going to the altar, you're not tending it, it's dirty, it's dusty. you're not evoking this goddess, you're not petitioning or anything. So you've sort of kind of moved on from it, that particular, situation. So, yeah, I don't think that's a positive experience, and I think that there could be repercussions from that. The concept that other entities, other spirits might be coming through that portal, it's a possibility. I don't know how you set your altar up, so I'm not going to shoot you down and say, oh, that's not true. I don't know. What did you do when you set that altar up? What have you brought forward from the beginning and over time? So, you got to be careful about that. But what I will say about that experience is this. You have to take it serious. You have to be responsible in the same way that you would take, churches and things like that, places of worship. You take it seriously when you go there. You don't, you're not probably disrespectful. Oh, if you're banging, that's my washer. I'm washing a comforter and I see it's having an experience in my laundry area. But anyway, you need to actually, be respectful. And if you're finding that, because listen, life happens and experiences happen, and it can take you, take your attention. So if you're finding that is happening to you, what you're going to want to do is clean off the altar, go back, honor, respect it. And if you're going to dismantle it because you no longer want the connection, then that's something intentionally you're going to need to do. Dismantling an altar to a specific god or goddess, it might vary a little bit depending on if you follow a certain path, but overall, in a general way, how I would approach that, because I've done it, is I would clean first, cleanse the space, sage, Palo Santo, whatever you want to do, light a specific cleansing type of incense, and physically cleanse the space. And then as you're putting each component of the altar space away, you're being grateful, you're thanking them, you're letting them know, you're going to want to speak this out loud. You're letting them know nothing needs to rhyme. You're speaking from the heart, like you're like a breakup almost. And you're just letting them know you thank them for the experience, for allowing the communing to even occur, that you're ever so grateful, that you want to sever ties. You might want to repeat maybe that part of it, maybe at least 3 times. There's no power in 3. But yeah, you want to do that. Basically speak your intentions aloud, and maybe even write some sort of petition or letter explaining further on, you wanted to sever ties with their connection and at this time, and again, always express gratitude. And put everything away, the altar pieces. I might store them in separate places depending on how elaborate your altar was. I probably wouldn't put everything in a same box or the same, whatever you're putting them in. I would probably separate those things. And certain things that you've used, incense, things like that, maybe bury them. I wouldn't burn those. I wouldn't use those for another deity. I wouldn't use maybe some of the tools unless you cleanse them thoroughly, metaphysically speaking. Before you use them in some other type of working or ritual or something like that. So that's it. And it's just a general sense that, like I said, depending on who you were working with, there's probably a lot more that you're going to need to do, but that's like just kind of like the basics. So breaking it down more on who to venerate, I would just say, or who to follow. Go where you're wanted. If you feel called, seek that. Look up information. Find as much as you can about them, and just work from there and continue to invite. I'm not big on setting up altars immediately. Let them sort of tell you that initially. Just work on communication. Use tarot cards, use runes, use whatever divination that you have, maybe as a tool to communicate. That is going to get on my nerves. Anyway, there's banging from the washer. It's not load, it's not balanced load. Anyway, learn, study, and all that, like I said. Now, a little bit about cultural appropriation. It's possible, it is possible that you might be going down a slippery slope here. So, I've said this before, it only matters, I think, if you're trying to take your goddess god show on the road. So me and my home working with Norse gods and goddesses, for instance, me doing that, or Celtic goddesses, if I have this connection, I only follow that particular pantheon, and I'm totally entranced in it, and that's my thing. I think once I come onto YouTube and I introduce that, and I'm acting as if it's my own, and I'm not giving any reverence or nod to the fact that these come from this particular area and this belongs to this particular people and so forth, and if there's any other culture attached to it, but I'm only sort of cherry picking the stuff that I like, I think that might be a bit disrespectful. I could see people finding that disrespectful, and I just used myself. I'm not going to get into the race thing, but the point is, you have to share responsibly. And even though you might be excited about something, if you really haven't looked at the whole thing, the whole culture, I should say, then maybe don't share so much until you're a little bit more educated and you can be a little bit more respectful in how you go about sharing. So there's that. So what's the deal with ancestors, right? So what's the deal with ancestors? So again, I gave my bit of example on, I had an experience that wasn't so great, that sort of was the bridge that led me to getting into understanding my ancestors and working with them. And I haven't looked back. Do you need to be part of a religion to do so? And I'm speaking more of the ATR type religion, because I know a lot of people kind of lump all that together, and that's not necessarily true. Because as I mentioned before, I had no connection to any of that, but yet here I was setting up an ancestor altar, finding a way to communicate through meditation, through divination tools and things like that. So I was able to have that experience, and I wasn't initiated in any specific, ATR. So no, you don't. And let me write what I have here. Family connection. I know that kind of stumps people. If I'm adopted, if I don't have connection with my family at all, if I just, I don't know my family. Yes, of course, that doesn't matter. And then there's this other thing I just want to point out. When we say ancestors, they're obviously the people in your bloodline. But I believe there are people who are like family, who can also be someone part of your ancestral line. And I'll give an example. So years ago, I was working with a spirit board with a group of people that I know and I love, friends, close people, and my daughter's actually part of it. So someone came through, and when I asked who they were, they had given me information that was accurate to the day, and I asked who they were, and the name was spelled out Joa. It drove me crazy for a long time, because I was like, what is that? Who is? I couldn't figure out what that was. Joa? And I couldn't figure it out. So that's as far as it got. So what I would find out, it was Joan. And I was, years later, man, I tell you, it's been a journey. So it was a Halloween night, and I was doing some work where I was working with the ancestral realm, and those that had gone beyond, because the veil was thin. And finally, years later, I got my answer on who it was. It was my grandmother's friend, Miss Joan. Miss Joan was someone who I thought was the cat's meow. I thought she was just class. She used to wear like a bouffant beehive hairstyle. And I really dig Miss Joan. I thought she was a fancy lady. Her furniture was always more fancy. It's not that this woman was rich or anything, but I assigned her class and on some level money, I guess, wealth, a little rich or something, even though this woman wasn't rich at all, I'm sure. Because we weren't rich and she lived in our neighborhood, so there you go. Anyway, the point is, I saw her, I assigned sort of that to her as a child, a little kid. So what I had been asking about during that spirit board experience was I was asking, because we were going through it. My husband was, we were, he took this job that it wasn't working out very well, and the money wasn't good. I'm just say that. I'm trying to be delicate about this. It was many years ago, but I don't want to get into all that. Anyway, the point is, I wasn't talking about like a money spill, because I was like, when is this situation going to end? You know, I felt like we were just drowning in our situation, and I was like, when is this going to change? And they gave me a date, and it was Miss Jones. So it was money related and lifestyle related, and I was looking to know, I knew because of previous readings and divination practices that things were going to change, but I was like, when? So I was really frustrated, and she let me know when, gave me a date and everything, and on that date, everything changed. So, but anyway, back to the story. So Miss Joan came through to me. Now, I am not blood related to Miss Joan, but she is someone who stood out to me. And I never forgot that woman. You know, this was my experience with her. I don't, know what everybody else, but me as a child, she was grade A to me. So she let me know. She came through and she talked to me, and I consider her part of my ancestor reverence, because she came through and she talked to me. I do. So no, they don't have to be family. And I think, but she was like family. She was like a grand auntie to me. So anyway, that's my Miss Jones story right there, by the way. Shout out to Miss Jones forever. So no, it doesn't have to be blood members only. It does not, no. So what are the key points that I want you to take away from all this? There's no harm in simply learning and admiring a specific deity. So I know Oshun is very popular because of, Beyonce and the internet. So I know, and she's beautiful, the color yellow, and she's about beauty and all that sort of stuff. Why not? Why not get into Oshun? Let me fix my thing. Anyway, why not get into her? But the reality of it is, she might, you may not be a daughter of Oshun. It's possible that you're not, that you just have a fondness for her. And that's perfectly fine. I don't think that's an issue. You can revere her. I think that you can still commune with her on some level, and maybe bring, elements of her in honor of her. That's not disrespectful at all. I don't see that being an issue. I think it would be an issue if you were walking around saying you're a daughter of Oshun and you haven't been initiated. I think that might be an issue. I'm just saying. That's just my take on it. I do. But it doesn't mean that it's hands off completely. I think some people, when trying to explain that, make it seem like, well, you're not allowed to even deal with her at all. She's ours because we have access to, high priestesses and so forth, or priests to initiate us, and you don't. And you haven't been told that you're her daughter, so you're not allowed to participate at all. And the reality of it is, even as those of us who are African American, I live in first of all, almost all my neighbors are white. Most of the people in this city are white where I live, and maybe Hispanic, and maybe Native American, which I don't want to get into. I was going to say which I think are the same. But anyway, the point is, it's not a lot of people walking around trying to initiate me here that I could just run up on in-person situation. It's just not. And the next city over and the next city over. So with that being said, it might not be possible for me. So I feel this affinity and this attraction to this Oshun. So that means it's hands off, and I don't get to, dress in gold, but I feel something when I do. Feel something. Dress in gold and in yellows, and have things. What you don't see off camera is I actually have something set up just in honor of Oshun, because and I'm not initiated, but I don't profess to be, and I don't profess to be part of something bigger, but I can honor her, and I can have respect for her, and I wouldn't say I have an altar for her, but I have a space to honor her. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's a respectful way that I go about, and that's just how I do. with Oshun, because like I said, I know she's popular, and I've had that set up for years. It's moved from location to location with me. She's one of the goddesses that has stood out to me over the years, that I was able to actually connect with, and that's why I have a space where it's an honor to her. Now, I don't necessarily go to that space for any sort of ritual or things like that. It's just my space and my home for her, and she knows it, and it's received, and I feel good about that. So that's that. So like I said, there's nothing wrong with simply learning and honoring, it's and admiring. It's okay. Ancestors typically come to you. This is another with attention, energy, and offerings, and even petitions. But they most likely will make themselves, they'll reveal themselves to you. You shouldn't feel like you're hunting down someone to worship or have an experience with, a deity to have an experience with. You shouldn't feel a pressure to do that, and you shouldn't be working from that type of emotion. Don't do that. They usually reveal themselves to you. So, and by the way, once they have, don't ignore them for too long. Back to the earlier conversation. That is not a positive thing. Don't do that. That can have negative consequences. There is no need to fear spirit. There's no need to fear the spirit realm, that ancestral plane, or that space where the gods, exist. There's no need to fear association or a glimpse of it. A lot of us see glimpses through dreams. Some of us are fortunate enough to be able to have visions, see auras and all that sort of stuff. Some of us can see in our waking hours what others can't see with their naked eye. So don't be afraid. Just because you don't understand it, and it might take time for you to understand what you're even seeing, especially if you don't have guidance, a teacher or someone. You may not fully comprehend, and it might, because it is so unknown, fear is going to come. Reconcile your fear, and just do your best to understand. Be brave, and do your best to understand. You're fortunate. You've been blessed. To be able to have something some of us don't have, and honor that ability, that gift that you have, and use it. If you're not sure how to go about using it, you learn, study. Most of witchcraft is always just learning and study. It's wise, woman. Be wise, learn, but open yourself up to the possibility that maybe you do have a gift, and it's to be used in a certain way for communing. And explore that. Excuse me. Know that as you evolve, your connections to everything will as well. Your ancestors and all that. That connection will evolve. So what does that mean? For some of us, it starts with dreams. We get messaging through dreams. For others, it evolves where you have tools that you use, like I said, tarot cards and so forth. They speak to you through the cards. Or, water, whatever you want to use, and then it could go to just voices. You hear voices, symbols, other people saying things that would only resonate with you. Now, of course, I know people see time, like the 11:11 and all that sort of stuff. Yes, that's a way to communicate as well. But you might get more specific, like actual hear things, voices, or you only tune in to certain conversations that you hear on TV or movies, and you're attuned enough where you understand that's a message. That's a direct message, and they're saying it in words. You don't have to decipher. They said what they said. So yeah, that can evolve, and be open to that. Again, the fear. There's no place for fear with this. Get into the habit of doing more low-key rituals. To foster that evolution, whether it's just waking up in the morning, maybe you start talking out loud if you have a specific God that you work with, you know, talk out loud to that God. You know, wake up in the morning and have a conversation. And before you go to bed, speak out loud as if they're right there. You know, start doing stuff like that. Eventually, I believe, at least for me, I'm becoming less and less dependent on using tools than I was. And this is an active thing happening right now. I don't use a lot of my witchcraft tools as much. I'm having this experience where I'm just using my mind and I'm tapping in. Now, I won't stop using my tools probably in the foreseeable future because I like using them and I like what it does to me to put me in a mindset for communing. However, it's becoming more possible that I don't need to use the tools to have the connection. And finally, I want to kind of close out and just let you know that here at Leap Taken, me, Mika, I will never tell you who to worship or not to worship. I'm never going to tell you who or what you're supposed to follow because if you don't, you're not really doing it. If you tell me, like if you're in the comments and you give me something that I think is off the wall, more power to you. If you're hurting yourself or hurting someone, yeah, I'm going to probably point that out to you and say, hey, maybe not that. Hey, let me give you, because if you're reaching out to me in the comments, I feel you're open for me to, you know, it's an open door for me to maybe say something. But yeah, I'm not going to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't follow or that they're doing something wrong. I don't really think that's anybody's place to do that. I know me personally, I don't respond well to people when I see other people telling other people not to follow Oshun or they have to go to their ancestor altar and they have to do libations, they have to do certain things, the have-tos, the shoulds and all that. I'm not a fan of all that because it's really not your place or your business. And even if you don't understand how somebody else does what they do, but it works for them, that's just it works for them. You don't know the messaging that they're getting. You don't know their journey and where they are. For instance, I spent a good chunk of my witchcraft experience path not having any reverence for ancestors at all, not doing anything with ancestors. Someone could have easily looked at me and said, she's not doing it right. She's ignoring it. And yeah, ignoring, no, but I realized that there was a lot of layers that needed to be peeled back and shed in order for me to rightfully address and commune with my ancestors and have this experience with them. I had to shed that Christianity dogma in order to do so. And then to even think about dealing with it, any deity, I had to totally divorce myself of that because I was not going to be open to it because I'm not a fan of that Christian God. Just not a fan at all. Very anti-fan. I don't like terms like I'm a selfish God. I also don't like, because I'm not going to beat up on a Christian God, I don't appreciate people taking deities and wanting to kind of position that they are, I don't know, in a negative way. I don't like when people do that. They want to personify and, you know, these deities. I don't even want to get ancestors. That's an easier one because I'm seeing that people do that. Try to keep from assuming that your relationship with your ancestors or a specific god or goddess for that matter is only parent-child in a very modern 2020 way that we parent and have children, those dynamics. Be careful with that. And here's why. Because you're creating limits and boundaries that don't need to be there in your life. And you're creating a scapegoat. So be careful with that. I don't want to, I'm trying to keep it very high level and generic, but I'll just give a quick example. I don't think your ancestors are overly concerned with who you're having sex with. Sorry. If you're having an issue that you feel like your ancestors tell you, don't go with that guy because he's no good. Oh, but the sex is so good, but you don't like the way you feel after him. Then that's you not liking the way you feel. And that's you having a sexual desire, and this person seems to be very compatible with you from a sexual sense, but it's hard for you to separate anything beyond that. All your feelings get involved. That's you. That's not your ancestors. I swear to you, you're not being punished by ancestors. That's not happening. That's you setting limitation boundaries and intentions on yourself where you're punishing yourself for every time that you have that experience with that person. You're the witch. You're casting over yourself, over your life. That's you doing it. I tell you, it's not your ancestors. That's you. So you need to reconcile. Is it worth continuing to be in a sexual relationship with that person? Do I need to re-examine how I look at sex with people? Maybe I'm not someone who could just have a sexual experience and not have emotional ties to them. I don't know. That's the work that you need to do. That's some shadow work stuff. Work that out. Don't put that on ancestors. It's not that minute. It's not. It's not. But it's not. It's not. I promise you it's not. All right, that's enough about that. But anyway, and finally, I believe, again, spirituality in general is specific to the individual and how we practice. And even after I said all that, but I also believe that the minutia of the human experience, I don't believe the gods, the ancestors, the spirit realm. Well, maybe not we're going to take the spirit realm of it, the gods and the ancestors. I don't believe that they have to be intimately involved with all the mundane minutia that is being human. I don't believe that. I don't. And I think if you do believe that, you might begin to suffer from inaction, guilt, and getting stuck in your spiritual practice. Like I said, setting limitations and boundaries, because you begin to have self-imposed restrictions on what you can and can't do under the guise of, my goddess doesn't want me to do that. The gods don't want me to do that. Ancestors are watching. They came to me and they said that. And sometimes messaging, symbols, and those, them trying to just talk to you or reach out to you gets filtered through the lens of you're always being punished. So be careful with that. And that's all I have on this topic. Hopefully this is helpful. I tried to keep it pretty streamlined and simple, and like I said, I got all my notes here. I might have veered off a little bit here and there, but I wanted to just kind of keep it simple and have more of a discussion style about this. I realize I'm talking to a camera, but it feels like a discussion to me. But I wanted to sort of have that type of experience versus me telling you, because I think this is very sensitive when you start talking about your goddess, your god, your ancestors, the way you contact the spirit realm, the way you introduce spirit into your life. That's personal. That's very personal. So it's more, I'm giving you a little bit of me. I'm also giving you a little bit of guidance and a little bit of maybe don't do that, because that's not going to work out well. So hopefully this has been helpful. And thank you for watching. Again, I'm Mika. This is Leap Taken. Please like this video and go ahead, subscribe if you haven't already. And I am now, I believe, about 300 subscribers, and I am so happy about that. So thank you for supporting this channel and for watching me. And I have a lot more content to come, and just thank you. And yeah, all right, please like and share. All right, bye.